I've done lattes. I've done breakfast sandwiches. Now, as the days of summer wane and summer comes to an end, I thought it best to tackle a delightfully cold and creamy dessert. This is Next Big Thing, Ice Cream Edition.
I will be covering 6 ice cream flavors. The first one out will be the plain, just the standard ice cream as a sort of a benchmark. It's a little different than some of my other defaults because the homemade ice cream is so much different from regular ice cream, you can't really compare it to anything else. 2, it'll be Bavarian nut. 3, dark chocolate espresso and cherry. 4, breakfast platter. 5, chocolate-covered potato chip, known in some parts as chippers. And 6, infinity berry cheesecake. Let's get started with the ice cream base.
Okie dokie, let's get started with the base of the ice cream. I'm making homemade ice cream. You could do whatever you want here. I'm just doing homemade with heavy whipping cream. So the recipe calls for 2 pints. So I'm going to use a double batch 1 quart, and then I'm going to need sweetened condensed milk. So 2 of those because I'm doing a double batch. So we're going to take all of the ingredients, put it in the bowl, and then we're going to whip it until soft peaks occur. If you don't want to go through all this work, you can certainly get soft serve ice cream or just plain vanilla ice cream if you really want to. But if you want to go to the extra efforts, this is looking good. Soft peaks. We will freeze this as our base, and then the plain ice cream will just be this frozen. Okay. With that, I'm going to move this over to the freezer while we do the toppings. Okay, and oops, that's a little full. Let's use some video magic to find some space. Great, let's freeze it.
First up, Bavarian nut.
Okay, we'll get started with Bavarian nuts. I have almonds here from whatever you can get fine retail Bavarian nuts. We're going to put this into a Ziploc bag. And then I also have equal parts cashews. Now you can certainly use whatever kind, if you have pecans, whatever other kind of Bavarian nuts, these are the kinds I wanted. And so I'm going to use them. Get them in the bag there. Get the air out. And then we're going to mash these up a little bit with a hammer. Yes, pound it up good, as fine as you'd like it. So I'll get it started here. That's okay, that's better, nice and powdery. And then I've also got some cinnamon sugar in here to make sure we have enough of that flavoring. And I'm just going to dump it. These are little ramekins. You kind of fill them up. And any extra toppings you can keep to put in at the end if you don't think you have enough. Okay, there's our first set of toppings. Hoo-yeah!
On to dark chocolate espresso and cherry.
Now we're going to the chocolate cherry espresso. So I've got some frozen dark sweet cherries. You can use wherever you want, but what you really need to do is chop them up as finely as you can. Then get some dark chocolate and melt it however you'd like. I'm going to use a double boiler and melt the chocolate, and voila, here we go. Got that nice and going. So then I'm going to take some espresso beans. These are dark roast. I think these work the best. And you could obviously get chocolate covered espresso beans and just use it from there, or you can make them yourself. Now, I think what I'm going to do here, instead of like dipping them one by one, I'm going to first take a little extra espresso powder to give that kick of coffee to the next level. And then I'm going to dump in espresso beans, a modest amount, and then just stir in the dark chocolate from there and kind of gauge it. You want to get kind of the right kind of ratio of chocolate to espresso, so you still get the coffee taste, but it's not overpowering. So you can kind of play around with it here. Some of this takes a lot of work to get right. I'm just doing it in one shot, hopefully to get it. You can certainly play around with ratios. And then from here, I think that's mixed pretty well. You can put it on parchment paper, any sort of thing. I don't have that right now. I've just sort of finished moving. So I'm going to use some aluminum foil, just kind of spread this out on a thin layer and pretend that it doesn't look like black beans, which would not go very well in ice cream. Anyways, spread that out nice and thin. Pop that in the freezer for a little bit to firm up. Okay, these look pretty good. And then from there, I'm going to chop these up finely. Okay, move things around here. Do a little scooping of the ice cream here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Get that there. Chop up the dark chocolate espresso. Okay, we're getting it pretty good here. That looks reasonable. So now I'm going to just cover the cherries on that, and we're going to have our second topping.
Now then, let's try a breakfast platter.
For our third breakfast platter, I'm going to start by candying bacon. This is just bacon with brown sugar on it. Cook to taste. Now, these are a little softer than I like, but I had to avoid getting them burned, so I'll chop them up and then take a waffle bowl, waffle cone, whatever. Gonna just cut these up as well to have our waffle pieces. And then with that, the star of the show, maple syrup, is going to go in our ramekin. Do not be shy with this. This will really be a good flavor to come out. And then just add the other two toppings. And there we go. Third down.
Okay, chocolate covered potato chip is next.
We're going to have chocolate covered potato chips. So I'm going to start with some milk chocolate and turn it into melted chocolate with a double boiler. And then take potato chips of choice. I like the wavy, get a little more of the ripples, I guess. And then just sort of get all that, that chocolate on there. And you kind of want to, again, play around with the ratios, make sure you get enough chocolate to potato chip goodness. And you want to do your best to coat the potato chips as best as possible, because I think the ideal is to get them well coated enough that the chocolate sort of insulates the potato chip against the moisture of the ice cream, so they stay somewhat crispy. Okay, looks like I'm gonna need to get a little more chocolate out of here. It's spatula time. Good old spatula comes to the rescue to make sure none of that chocolate goes to waste. What a terrible situation that would be indeed. So get it in there. We're going to continue to mix this up. And once that's kind of mixed up, we're going to freeze it shortly to sort of get it solid so we can chop it up. And now, instead of the paper or aluminum that I did with the espresso, I'm going to try a wire rack. We'll see if that is a little easier, and then just kind of spread that out. And then pop that into the freezer once I get a good spread on it. Any day now. Great. And they are back, and it turns out the wire rack was a bit of a disaster. They are stuck on there quite badly. So, using some instructive methods of flipping and banging, we got them all out, and so we're going to chop them up. Finally, you get the picture, just don't cut yourself on the knife. And voila, we have our diced pieces. And I added a little more just plain chips to make sure I get that salty goodness and that doesn't get missed out for this ice cream. All right, we have that one complete.
Finishing out with Infinity Berry Cheesecake. I'm always sort of disappointed with the cheesecake ice creams. They might have one berry, they might have two berry, they might even have triple berry. But if I want enough berries, I'm going to have to do it myself. Oh yeah, ultimate berry power.
On to our finale, Infinity Berry Cheesecake. We'll start with some no-bake original cheesecake mix and just take some of the powder and graham crackers, add about half and half to the ramekin, and we'll get our berries frozen. We'll get some of those cherries from earlier, then add a 4-berry mix, which includes blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, and raspberries. This is only 5, but don't worry, the 6 will come later. First, we need to chop these all up with our handy knife here. Okay, they're chopped. And then we're going to kind of stir them the best we can. We want to make sure. Oh, wait. Yes, the 6th berry. Where is it? Well, we'll mix these up first before we introduce our dark horse berry, as it were. Now, you could really do anything, but the only berry I could find on short notice was cranberries in sauce, so whole berries. So we're going to add those here. And I kind of like the idea of using cranberry as sort of the secret berry that no one would suspect. All right, going to mix that up. And that's going to add us a little more sauce for our accoutrements, our assemblage, our berries assemble sort of thing. Anyways, we'll need our trusty spoon here to just gulp all that delicious berry goodness. With that, we are complete.
Putting it all together.
To put it all together, we have our chilled ice cream, and we're going to add them to separate containers. And I realized right off the bat that this spoon is not up to the task. Yes, this is going to be a little bit better. I think we're going to do about 1.5 cups in each Tupperware. So here's the Bavarian nut. Okay, spoon that in. And then, because this is whipped, you kind of want to do your best to not disturb it too much, to kind of stir gently. I mean, you can always stir more once you've got it frozen. And again, I think for all of these, I ended up putting more toppings in at the very end with the toppings I had saved because I was worried that the flavor won't come through. So that's always good to have extras on hand. Okay, moving on to our second one. We have got the dark chocolate cherry espresso. Just dump that in here, and the cherries are not playing nicely, so let's get a nice spatula in there to take care of her business. Great. Okay, doing good here, and just fold that in the best you can. That's starting to look like something cherry related. To our third one, you get the idea. Scoop. This looks unsettling like marshmallow fluff, which that would be an interesting thing here. Just marshmallow fluff and toppings. Anyways, here's our breakfast platter. I'm trying to get that syrup on the bottom out. And you know what? I'm panicking, thinking I might not have enough syrup, so I'm just going to go ahead and glug a little more right away to stave that off. 1, 2, 3. And now you can count to 3. Okay, mix that up good enough. Shifting on to number 4. This ice cream is definitely lowering. And once you get these 5 filled, the rest can be your plain. And I just put it in a separate container here. Okay, the chippers, which like to bunch together. So again, spatula to the rescue. A miniature spatula is your friend in these circumstances. But sometimes a spatula is not enough, only a spoon. and its metal goodness can do. All right, get that in there, toss it around. That's looking chunky. We've got our final, the berry a la infinity with the cheesecake in tow. That is going to come in here, and I'm going to just not even bother with anything but the spatula off the bat here. And this will take a little bit more. Now, if you had more time, or if you're just doing the berry itself, I would mix the cheesecake stuff right in the batter when you're doing it. And I added a little bit more here of both the powder and the graham cracker to make sure it comes through. Okay, I think we're done here. Let's get to judging here. There were 8 judges total. So starting out with our plain here, these were the scores from 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being unimaginably good. This was fairly standard, ranging from 4 to 7. Moving on to Bavarian Nut, it did better. Scores even at 10 for Judge 8 here, and going down to 6. The dark chocolate espresso was a little more muted, ranging from 8 to 5. Breakfast platter definitely did very poorly. We had not 1, not 2, but 3 1s, the lowest score you could give, the highest score being 7. Then chocolate covered potato chip, aka chippers, had a little bit better showing, though it was kind of all over the board, down to 3 all the way up to 9. And finally, infinite berry cheesecake was the clear winner here. The lowest score was 8 and 3 perfect scores of 10. So with that, the totals here ranged from the plain being our benchmark of 45 all the way down to 24 with breakfast platter, and a whopping 74 for infinity berry cheesecake. So we can see here that Bavarian Nut, dark chocolate espresso, chocolate covered potato chip, and infinity berry cheesecake were higher than the plain, and then breakfast platter were lower. But was that significant? So to look at that, I ran a statistical test, which I will explain the results on the next slide. So not that you probably care or anything, but the statistical test I ran was transforming the scores into percentages using a generalized linear model with a beta distribution and judge as a random effect. And these were the results. So we have plain over here in the corner, and we found that Bavarian Nut was significantly higher scored than plain, while breakfast was significantly lower scored. And then far and above, the highest was infinity berry cheesecake. So when it comes to next big things, ice cream, we have an outstanding winner. When it comes to the best flavor to look forward to, you have to give it up for the power of the infinity berry cheesecake. Thanks for joining me on this next big thing adventure. Stay safe, cool yourself off with some ice cream, and brace yourselves for awesome.